You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there, and welcome to what may be a very uncomfortable conversation, but my soul is calling me to have it. So I am inclined to answer that call. It is so very necessary to my own journey, and I'm so grateful that you are willing to walk alongside me and my friend Mark Joseph today. I want to share with you ever so briefly how this particular episode came to be. Given the title and the timing, I know that so many of you are already sick of the topic of the great Oscar debacle. We all saw it with our own eyes, either in real time or the continuous replays later. I just want to make it clear that this particular conversation is not about who was right or wrong in that whole mess, but that we are using it as a launch pad to have a larger discussion and perhaps to try to understand one another better as humans navigating a very messy life. Mark and I landed in the same work environment several years ago when my family first moved to the DFW area, and to be honest, I only spent a couple of months working with Mark in that standard and professional office environment. But hey, it's what I do. Relationships just kind of form organically with the people that I surround myself with. Just so you know, if you're in my sphere, you're coming in. We have kept in touch for a good 4 to 5 years, which is a longer period of time, of course, than we ever interacted with on a daily basis. And not frequently, but we have met up here and there for coffee and conversation. I think when you hear this, you will understand the types of conversations that the two of us are willing to have. And I actually wanted to have Mark here back in November on this podcast, but it just didn't work out with the schedules. When I asked him initially, what I pitched to him was something like the format of uncomfortable conversations with a black man, like Emmanuel Acho. He was like, yeah, let's do it. He didn't even hesitate. Just so you know, I had already teed it up for him to talk to me about the hard things, and he was all in. If you know anything about Emmanuel Acho's work, you'll understand that angle. And if you don't, Google is your friend. So I think it is important to note, and it is a testament to the power of our connection, our personal connection, that many months later, when a little something went down at the Academy Awards ceremony, I texted Mark and I very simply said, I think now is the time. And he immediately responded, agree, I'm in. And we were able to pull this recording off within 48 hours of the slap. Now, I'm telling you the timing of this because I think it is very crucial to understand not only the headspace that we are both in while we're having this conversation, and we both agreed that we needed to talk about this while it is fresh, but also understanding all of the chatter that we knew was happening around us, including all of the calls to shut it the fuck down. I don't want to hear any more about this. That was already happening within 24 hours. But I encourage you. You are already here. You press play. You came this far, so you are curious. I want to applaud you for doing that and assure you that we are not going to spend the next hour breaking down a play-by-play of what transpired. On Sunday, we are both just as tired as you all are on that front. What I was super curious about was how the narratives spun into places that I personally was not expecting, though I am not surprised. That is what we're going to talk about today, and that is why this moment in time is important to capture. We probably spent, 5 minutes talking about the event itself because, hey, if you're listening 3 years from now, maybe a quick recap is in order. If you're listening in real time, you're tired of hearing about it, a double tap will send you on to other places. Just, double tap forward. It is the untangling of the collective of everything that came of that event that is the meat of this discussion. Why did this suddenly become a race issue? Why do so many Black women want to be defended in a manner such as this? Why does any human respond the way that we do? What traumas are we carrying? What entanglements started to unravel in those moments during a public award ceremony that, quite honestly, holds meaning to only those celebrities being honored? And by the way, what about everyone else who was overshadowed as a result? And how do we have these uncomfortable conversations in our daily lives? Because, hey, it starts with us. It starts right here in our own backyard. And I didn't choose Mark randomly to have this conversation with. My soul's intuition asked me to reach out, and it all fell into place very rapidly from there. I didn't choose Mark because he's my Black friend who's available for the conversation. He's a super busy professional with a family, with young kids, and else we would have already talked about these things months ago. But the universe decided for us that this is the time. And I know that he's put himself out there for other podcasts and public discussions, and that he doesn't shy away from the controversial topics. He leans in. He doesn't hide behind the keyboard. He is willing to meet you in person, face to face, always. But yeah, I definitely wanted his perspective as a Black man, and I can tell you that it was enlightening for me, just as any other conversation that we have is. That was certainly intentional because I don't know my demographics at that level. The best I know is where you're listening from, like country and state. I don't know your race, your ethnicity, and whatever you might be carrying. Of course, I don't know those things, but that's perfect. Because when we start to drill down on statistics and push past the social media frenzy, we find actual human beings with their unique perspectives, with their lenses, with their filters, and with their own amazing souls. That is what you will hear today. So I want to thank Mark from the bottom of my heart for creating space in his day for this. And again, I want to thank you for joining us. I think you might learn some things. I surely did. Let's do this. Welcome, my dear friend Mark, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
No problem. No problem. It's a pleasure. It is a
Oh,
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My honor. My honor. We've tried doing this before. We'll get to that in a minute. But what lights you up, Mark?
What lights me up? I think the number one thing that lights me up are my kids. They
Mm,
light me up. Like
mhm,
seeing them learn. They're both starting their new basketball journey. They just joined a basketball team,
mhm,
and just watching them learn and watching them play and watching them at practice, even struggle and then get over those challenges and get over those struggles, it
mhm.
really like empowers me. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is great. If they can do it, I can do it too. Like I want to go out and do something different and challenge me now. So yeah,
Mm,
that they light me up. They light me up.
that is so fantastic. I love that. I love that. We often forget how those moments can really touch us if we're not present with
Yeah,
them.
that's
So
right.
you, my
That's
friend,
right.
are present.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. But what I was going to say when I said we'll get to that in a minute was that we have tried to connect before in this manner and have some conversations.
Yes,
My
we've
I
had great conversations in the past, but just haven't,
yeah.
had it on the podcast. So, Sonny, I am here. But before you go on, I want to
Mhm.
know what lights you up.
Oh, oh, man. Oh, you know, actually, I had this conversation with a peer earlier. I was on another podcast earlier, and that kind of came up for me in the conversation. Not that I was being asked, but it just kind of came up. And I I get lit up by seeing the light in other people, so very, very
Mm,
similar to what you're describing with your kids, but it's like not always just one person or one event or that kind of thing, but just having a conversation with someone and really seeing the connection in them
yeah.
is just, that is some
Oh,
good stuff.
just making space for someone so they can just be themselves and just
Mm,
acknowledge the humanity in that person. I can
ooh.
attest to that too. It's a wonderful feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just see it. Woo, you're starting off with you're just full of surprises and starting off with all kinds of fun things. This is so wonderful. Yeah, we were going to talk. Yes, we've had many conversations before. We do always have amazing conversations. And this one being recorded, we tried to do it a few months ago and it just didn't work out. And to be honest, I just let it go. I know how super busy you are. And but then a little something happened over the weekend. And I thought, oh my God, I thought of you and I was like, oh, I want to hear Mark's take
Yeah.
on this whole. And yes, we are going to go there because let me tell you what, I'm already seeing on social media that like, we're tired of hearing about it. We don't want to hear anymore. Well, you know what? We're going to hear some more about it because you
Yeah.
and I are going to dig into it a little bit, peel back some layers of, because there are all kinds of conversations happening around the, Will and Jada Smith and Chris Rock scenario that went
Hmm.
down at the Oscars, at the Academy Awards. And so many other conversations are coming of that. So I just want to go with it and see where this leads. But I don't know, Mark. Was that real? Was that real or staged? That's one of the big
Uh,
questions out there. What do you think?
I think it was definitely real. I think it was definitely real. I don't think that that type of raw emotion
Mhm.
could be staged because people were out there analyzing. I mean, even I had a slow motion video posted on Instagram,
Yeah.
and like friends are looking at it and analyzing, and like, wow, was it a punch? Was it a slap? What was he smiling when he walked up, and he was smiling when he walked away? And like people, everyone's trying to figure it out. And I think when he gave his acceptance speech, for me, that's what solidified the authenticity of it
Mm,
and the fact that he apologized to the academy and like the raw emotion that he displayed during the acceptance speech. Yeah, you can't fake that. You
okay.
can't fake that. I mean, he's a great actor, but no one's that great. No one's that
Mm,
great that they can fake that type of raw emotion, the hesitation in his breath, when you're talking and you can't really get the words out. uh,
mhm,
yeah, yeah.
mm, okay. So his acceptance speech touched you. And I mean, I've heard, yes, I've heard, well, he is an actor and all of that.
Hmm.
But you know what? It almost doesn't matter whether it was real or staged at this point,
Yeah,
in my
right.
opinion. because we're just going straight opinions at this. We're just
Yeah.
going to give our thoughts in a real and raw manner. um I don't believe that it matters. What matters is what is coming out of it.
Yeah,
And there are
definitely.
so many narratives, and we're not even going to be able to touch them all, but so many things are coming out of this. Not, one of them, well, can comedians say anything anymore? I mean,
Mm,
can they say
yeah,
can they
yeah.
say
So,
anything?
growing up in the 80s, well, 90s, but 80s too. I'm going to be honest about my age.
Mm-hmm,
We had comedians out there that would talk about anything and everything, and like it didn't matter.
mm-hmm,
We took it as a joke. It
mm-hmm,
was really a joke, and we brushed it off. And I think we have become a very hypersensitive society, but I think there's good sides to that. Like we should take a closer look at people's humanity and start to be a little bit more sensitive to people's circumstances. I mean, we're coming out of a pandemic
yeah,
where the suicide rates were out of this world because people
mm-hmm,
were forced to stay inside and look at themselves and
mm,
see exactly how really unhappy they truly are with themselves. So I mean, I think we should be a little bit more sensitive to one another. And it may be time for comedians to kind of take a step back and maybe, you know, do their due diligence before coming on stage and, heckling the front row. Like most people are scared to sit in the front row to any type of comedy show. I don't want to be picked on, but
mm-hmm,
if you got a good armor, then go ahead, sit up in the front row and
yeah,
let's have fun. Let's joke around. But
yeah,
not everybody wants that. Not everyone welcomes that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah.
Let's go back to the laughter too of Will's initial response to it, because that's definitely been thrown around a bit, that it was all fine until he saw Jada's face and her,
Mm.
in her reaction. um and that it may or may not be true. We don't know what's going on in their heads. I'm not trying to analyze that. But what I'm also trying to understand is, one of the other conversations that is coming out of this is the hashtag defend Black women. And I I I want to understand if that is really what that means. If that kind of defense is what Black women, I'm not asking you to speak for Black women, but your understanding of,
Yeah.
of that, is that is that what this was? Is that what that was?
So I want to first touch on the chuckle, and that's what I called it. Everyone we were talking about, I was like, to me, that looked like a nervous chuckle. I
Mm,
mean, if you get into the mind of Will Smith, he's been nominated for an Oscar. He, if ever you've been made fun of, you usually have a nervous chuckle. It's not like you really find it funny. It's like, I'm gonna save face, just
mm-hmm,
um, so I think that's what we saw. It wasn't that it was funny to him. It was just like, I'm just gonna laugh it off, whatever.
mm-hmm,
And I think he also expected Jada to have that same reaction, like, oh, this chuckle, laugh it off. But when he saw how upset it made her, that's when he got snapped back into reality.
mm-hmm.
Now, to the point about defend Black women, I think that was all over the internet, and there's so many layers to that.
Right, right.
The African American woman, the Black woman, has been the most abused, the most neglected. Um, you know, no one protects her.
Mm,
No one protects her. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that you. I consider you an ally to the struggles of African Americans, and you know that white fragility, white tears. I mean, people will come running at
yeah,
it can be a white woman that has just committed murder, but she's crying. So the media is going to go to her and like, how does this make you feel? Are you okay?
yeah.
Why did you do it? What did he do to you? So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but yet we have, you know, Black women that get killed for being pulled over. And it's just sad.
It runs deep. It runs
It
deep,
runs
and it's
very deep.
and it
So, so,
yeah.
so I think a lot of Black women saw this as an opportunity to say, protect us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Will. yes, will be an example for these other men that need to protect Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And and uh, we all, I mean, Black men especially, should take notice to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always have to be physical protection. It can be stand up, talk, and shout, and make sure that you're heard because we aren't being heard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I take that very seriously. And my opinion, I know we're talking opinions here.
Yes.
When it first happened, my opinion was hell yeah. I would have gotten up and knocked somebody out for saying some stupid stuff. It's some medical condition. It's something that she can't help. Like, yeah, if you made fun of her dress, I'd still be like, maybe have a nervous chuckle, like, yeah, okay, that's her choice.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that she can change. A medical condition that should be off limits.
Mm-hmm.
So I was definitely Team Will in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure where I am now. Now I've had so many conversations, so many compelling conversations about the whole incident that I think everybody's just wrong at a certain point. So yeah,
Everyone's wrong. Yes, yes.
everyone was just wrong. Like
Yeah.
what is it? Like Chris was wrong, Jada was
Yeah.
wrong, Will was
Yeah.
wrong, but
Yeah.
but then they may all be wrong, but at the same time, I get it. I understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Chris, you're a comedian. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Will, you've been dealing with a lot. The
Mm-hmm.
emasculation, the
Mm-hmm.
embarrassment, the depression, the anxiety. So I get it. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Jada, where she is today and the kind of stuff that she's exposed to the world, and she's really opened up a lot of her life to the world. And so she's probably feeling really, really sensitive and vulnerable. So I get it. I get all of their reactions, but I
Mm-hmm.
think they're all wrong
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of their approach. So
I love that summary because I really want to carry this conversation over into, the larger conversation and not make this about these three people.
mhm,
And I do think that on that level, that's what so many people are starting to say, look, let it go. I don't want to hear any more about it. Part of me wants to say, well, it's, because of the celebrity factor and all of that. But another part of me wants to say, don't want to hear any more about it because there are all of these tentacles kind of reaching out into these other
mm.
areas, like defending Black women, like, you know, whether,
Toxic femininity,
yeah,
toxic
toxic,
masculinity.
yeah,
There's
toxic
so many
femininity. Yeah, we
tentacles.
don't talk about that a
Yeah,
lot. White
not
women
a lot.
tears.
Mm,
That that comes up. That comes up because, and I completely understand. I understand it. And so, to my white sisters listening, um, I would say that you did a very good job, Mark, of just kind of scratching the surface there. And yes, it runs so very deep, but we white women need to understand that historically we have been at the center of
mm,
so much Black oppression
mm,
and lynching
mm.
and all of it,
Yeah,
because all we have had to do historically, and to some degree that still happens today, to your point, because you were making it about, okay, this could happen today. If a white woman cries, people come running.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
not, I mean, that is simply an observation. That is honestly how it is. And so
yeah,
what happens is that when we white women show up in spaces to try to have conversations about something like this, we get shut down really fast.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately,
Really fast for asking questions and that kind of thing. It's like, nope, it's you listen, sit down, shut up and listen. And I understand it. There are so many of my sisters who really genuinely want to try to learn, and that is the response that they get, you know,
yeah.
and
It,
about something like this.
it's unfortunate, and I get it though. Like,
Yeah.
so if you're coming, so how do I explain this? The best way, I guess, to explain it is, I think a lot of times, not just white women, but I'm in a part of a group here in my town of, I mean, 85, 90% of the Facebook group are white men, conservative white men.
Okay.
And there are times we are debating and asking questions, and sometimes they kind of want to get a little curious and ask me personal questions and different things. And it feels like I'm a science experiment for them. And I think
Mm,
that's what it may feel like to others. I
mm-hmm.
can't speak for Black women, but
Right.
in those circles, you're coming in from your perspective. So you have a normal Eurocentric mindset when you're coming at it. And don't waste your time trying to define my life from your phenomenological perspective.
Mm,
So that's where the sit down, shut up comes from. Like, you can't even begin to understand our
yeah.
struggle.
Yeah.
So don't try to come at it from your viewpoint, trying to understand my struggle, because it's going to sound really condescending and disrespectful.
Mm-hmm. It's going to
So
sound condescending and disrespectful when I say it, you mean?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
When
Mm-hmm.
when you're asking me questions and teasing out my answers
Mm-hmm.
and judging, because it's going to sound very judgmental when you're like, well, so I don't see the world like that because I. When those
Mm-hmm.
that starts to happen, it's like, yeah, it's not about you. Yes, this
Mm-hmm.
world is made up for people that look like you. Everything is defined. Freaking band-aids look like you.
Oh man.
Stockings look like you.
Yeah.
You know, nude stockings.
Mm-hmm.
When I,
Mm-hmm.
if a
Mm-hmm.
woman puts on nude stockings, they don't look like her. A Black woman, come on. So this world is the center of the universe is the white woman right now,
Yeah.
today, even today. So for a white woman to try to impose herself and try to understand it from her perspective,
Mm-hmm.
you've already failed. Now, if you sit down and shut up and listen to a Black woman and really listen to understand, not listen
Mm-hmm.
to judge, but listen with curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
at that point, you'll begin to understand. You won't really fully conceptualize, but you'll actually begin to understand. And
Mm-hmm.
once you're allowed into that understanding, then you can broaden that perspective. Then you can begin to ask questions because you're now coming from the root, coming from that angle. You're
Mm-hmm.
not coming from your angle. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And
Okay.
thank you for bringing up the band-aids and the stockings. Do you know that I haven't even thought about stockings because I haven't worn them in so long.
Right.
But band-aids, I've noticed only recently. I can't remember. I think I saw an ad or something. I was like, oh, it just never occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
never occurred to me um, that something such an everyday item um, is not available in quote unquote skin tone
Yeah.
color for anyone other than Caucasian. It's just
Yeah.
wow. And you're right. Yes, the world is centered on whiteness and has been for a very, very long time. And so we're
Yeah.
in a time of maybe a little bit of reckoning, and that's quite all right. But
Oh yeah.
hopefully some transformational change, which may be in the midst of. This is what I'm feeling. Like I'm feeling a shift, and that we are kind of in something, and it's going to be painful. That
Yeah.
that
It has to be.
process is gonna that growth process is gonna hurt.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of oh, wait a minute. What am I saying? I still have your book. This is what I'm gonna bring up. The Dark Night of the Soul. I was like,
Dark
wait a
night of the
minute.
soul. Wait a minute,
Yeah,
it's your book.
it's your book.
Yes.
You gave it to me.
Yeah.
And I haven't still not finished it, but
No, that's great.
that's what I feel like we're going through. The
Yes,
collective
the
is going
collective.
through a dark night of the soul. Like, this is
Yes.
something that we have to go through in order to transition and grow,
Yeah.
and we to evolve. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
I'm gonna get scientific for you real quick, and this is a conversation. Me and my brothers have these type of crazy conversations all the time.
Oh boy.
But you know how historically we look back and there's been I don't remember all the scientific terms, but there was the caveman, there was Homo erectus, and then Homo sapien came, and there's
Hmm.
always been an evolution over
Yes.
time,
Yeah.
over thousands and thousands of years.
Hmm.
Well, when was the last time we evolved?
Yeah.
When was the last time that we just historically just okay, now we just stopped and we Homo sapien, we're just going to accept that? I
Hmm.
think we are in the midst of an evolution of
Mm.
our species,
Mm.
and it's going to be driven by emotional intelligence. We are
Mm.
having that shift where we are becoming more sensitive. Comedians, and one another, we're recognizing each other's humanity. We just
Hmm.
went through this traumatic experience, this pandemic, where we were forced to connect with one another at home, but also online.
Hmm.
And you know, you have to ask your coworkers on Zoom, where you're really your connection to the outside world, if you really cared about how they were doing.
Yeah.
And like there was connections there. So I feel like all the bad stuff that COVID brought along, I think it also gave us an opportunity to reconnect with our humanity.
Thank
So
you. Hmm.
I think this is the beginning of the next evolution. Having to
Mm.
sit there and watch George Floyd die
Yeah.
multiple times a day,
Yeah.
it allowed us to connect to our humanity and people to recognize, because Black men died all the time.
Yep.
They were always shown on the news multiple times a year. You'd see Black men die, and no one thought anything of it because they weren't human to the majority of the world.
Mm.
It just was, oh, he's a thief. Oh, he's a drug dealer. Oh, he's this.
Hmm.
They deserve to die.
Hmm.
Here's a Black man that didn't deserve to die, and people watched him die
Hmm.
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Listen to his last words.
Yeah.
So we were forced to recognize his humanity and therefore recognize one another's.
Hmm.
So it's time.
Yeah. That definitely was, that was a turning point for sure. And yeah, it was a perfect storm. It was everything in the universe aligning, because we were already home with COVID and, in lockdown or what have you. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was there. It was not something that we could just look away from or pretend that it didn't exist, or even say, I don't want to talk about this anymore. No,
Mhm.
that that was not happening with George
Yeah.
Floyd, and I'm grateful for his sacrifice in the name of humanity. You know,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
how could that soul have
Wow.
possibly known what it was in for? When
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
so it's amazing. Whew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, how did we get here? We went from Will, Jada, and Chris to George Floyd, and
I
like,
know. Well, yes, we did, because I just want to, again, I just want to touch on that whole collective experience that we are having, that we
yeah.
are in the midst of, and get your insights, get your like real insights into when we talk about right or wrong. Okay,
Mm,
because you're talking about, we're talking about the three people that we started talking about being wrong. Ultimately, it really is, and it is through everyone else's filter and lens. I mean, there are plenty of people out there, as you said, there are plenty of people who completely applaud what happened, and they're like glad to see it, what have you. And that's probably not going to change, even though, like you're
right.
saying, you're going through, some thinking about it. And it's bigger than this event. It's just like, okay, like what is right and wrong for me? For
Mm,
me, that is the question. So
yeah.
I think we are
Yeah.
being called to make those choices at this time. What is right or wrong for me? And as a coach, I don't want to straddle the fence and say, well, I'm just going to sit this one out and be neutral. No, I don't believe that is what I am here for. I don't mind stirring the pot. I don't mind talking about the hard shit. I think it's so necessary. I think not
Yeah.
enough of us are talking about the hard things, you
Mm,
know?
mm. So
And
true.
And I
So
think
true.
that for me, again, back to the white women in that thing, it's like, I think another thing that I would advise, and you tell me if I'm on the right track here, you can add to this, however, expand on it. I think what I would advise women, white women out there in the world who are trying to understand a little bit more, is that there are there are spaces. We call this free emotional labor, right?
Mm.
Especially when we're talking about Black women, Black men. I consider this an act of love, you being here, and, and allowing me, a little bit of free emotional labor on your part. I recognize that. I honor that. I appreciate that. And I think that we need to understand that when we go asking these questions, we need to understand the space in which we are asking those questions. That is what I'm getting at. Like,
Mm.
is this a space where I can have this conversation, or is this just a general space where, who knows what's going to happen? You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
don't want to call it a safe space, but I want to say I know there are groups and communities out there where you can have these conversations. They have to exist. Surely they do.
Yeah. But there, so you have to recognize the audience. Um,
Hmm.
I think that for many, I can't speak for all Black people. I mean,
Right.
we're not a
We're not a
monolith.
monolith. Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I do know that we do share experiences, and
Hmm.
I think that one of our shared experiences are, rooted in post-traumatic slave syndrome,
Hmm.
and we are all dealing with the trauma that's been passed down by generation by generation by
Yes.
generation.
Hmm.
So not all of us have the patience to sit in the safe space and to labor emotionally with white women or white men.
Hmm.
Not all of us have the um, not just patience, but the capability. I don't want to say capability. It's more of a desire.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
may have the
Hmm.
patience, we may be able to be patient, but I sometimes,
Yeah.
what I hear from my community, from folks who have done this emotional labor,
Hmm.
is that it ain't going to change. It's not
Hmm.
going to, someone might change temporarily, but who they are is who they are. They're
Hmm.
always going to be, if they were a bigot before my conversation, they're going to be a bigot after.
Mm.
And I don't feel that way, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's how many people feel about having these type of conversations. So you have to know your audience. There's definitely a place, a
Yeah.
time and place to have these type of conversations. um, what I would say to folks in your audience that might be listening is to check in. It doesn't hurt to check in.
Hmm.
you know Ask the question, how does this make you feel?
Yeah.
How does this conversation make you feel?
Hmm.
Do you want to take a break? Is this a good time? Do you want to, parking lot this item and we can talk about it another time? Like, so check in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Remove yourself and your feelings and your emotions and all the attachments you have from the conversation. I mean, it's difficult, but you have to consider where the other person is, the frame of mind that that person is, and
Yeah.
it's very fluid. A
Hmm.
conversation can start off very gentle, very curious, non-abrasive, and something can trigger it.
Yeah.
A quick thing can trigger it, and all of a sudden it's taking a different turn.
Hmm.
So being receptive and being understanding and looking out for those turns and checking in to make sure that, hey, are you okay?
Hmm.
How does this make you feel right now?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
understanding that. So, to bring it back really quick, I just wanted to mention this. You kind of talked about the three people: Will, Jada, Chris. I think the reason for the polarity in everyone's opinions about this is because people saw themselves in one of those three people.
Mm.
That's the
Yes.
reason people were so polarized and so standing firm about their beliefs. The Black women saw themselves in Jada.
Yeah.
I haven't been defended. That felt good to watch a man defend her. I wish that more
Mm,
men would defend me like
mm,
that.
mm.
There were Black men out there, I'm sure, that saw themselves as Chris Rock. Man, I'm just joking. It was just a joke. Like,
Yeah.
why would you put your hands on me? If somebody put their hands on me, they got to die. Like that, I've
Yeah.
heard those things. Like,
Yeah.
no, no. And so there's certain people that saw themselves there. And there's certain people that saw themselves in Will. You know,
Mhm.
I've been broken.
Yeah.
I've been emasculated. I've had to defend myself publicly.
Mhm.
And now I'm going to stand up for myself. This is my moment where I'm going to
Mhm.
make sure that the world knows. And
Mm.
people saw that and cheered him on. It's like, yes, finally Will stood up for himself. So
That
yeah.
insight is incredible. That is incredible. I definitely am looking at the humans involved, but
Mhm.
I hadn't really considered the the polarity, the
The
um
projection,
the
the projection.
projection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is that's some very insightful observation there. It really is. Of course, I would expect nothing less. Nothing less. Yeah. And also I appreciate back to the learning part, and I do think that I'm seeing more of this in the past couple of years since George Floyd, that more are stepping up and saying, okay, help me understand how to be an ally. I get that. And I also get the perspective of, I love that you want to educate yourself. It is not my job to educate you. It is not,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that is my understanding of where so many are coming from in the Black community. They're like, we're tired. We are freaking exhausted. This has been
Mm.
going on for generations and we've had it.
Yeah.
So good luck to you. Here's some books. Go read, go read White Fragility, and start there and keep going. And
Yeah.
here's a few podcasts you can try, and here's something. And there may be some online communities for you, but do your own research and
Yeah.
then come back to me.
And
'Cause-
I think that the thing about it is, um, I have a way and means about myself. So I'm going to give you two examples of how I think help my allies or even my enemies.
okay.
So, are you on nextdoor.com? Do you ever go on that
I
website?
go every now and then, not
Yeah.
often. Yeah.
So I used to always be on there because I was new community, a
Uh-huh.
new neighborhood. I just wanted to get to know people and whatever.
Yeah.
And so there was a lady on next door. Actually, she should come on your podcast. You would enjoy talking to Miss Denny. Miss
Uh-oh.
Denny is a firecracker. She
Oh
is
boy.
wonderful. So she posted on nextdoor.com. Uh, Maybe I should let her tell the story, but I'm just giving a brief summary
Mhm.
about a young, I think it was a minority Black kid that came to her door and was, soliciting.
Mhm.
And she called the police on this young man because he didn't have any type of license to solicit in our neighborhood,
Mhm.
and it's the law. Um, and I got upset. I mean, I was furious, and I went in.
Mm.
Like I had no filter. This was years ago. I was a much angrier person there,
Oh.
and I mean, this was after I can't remember who it was. I don't remember, but there's been so many, unfortunately. But um, I just got upset
Mhm.
that she would call the police on a young Black man just trying to work. Like she can call the non-emergency number, she can call, or just ignore him, tell
Yeah.
him that he needs to get a license, but call the police, that
Yeah.
could have cost him his life.
Yeah.
And I just went in and I was very mean and I called her every type of racist name, bigot, blah, blah, blah. And then everybody came at me,
Mm-hmm.
of course, because this is a white neighborhood. So
Yep.
everybody came and I mean, even though she didn't shed any white tears, they knew that they had to defend her and they
Mm.
all came at me. I ignored it. I shut off my notifications, but then I started to think, I didn't give this lady an opportunity to explain. She could be an old, elderly, fragile woman, whatever. Well, she's not. But but like
Yeah.
I just took a step back and like, I didn't consider who she was and
Mm-hmm.
why she did what she did. So she invited me. I think she invited me or I invited her. I can't remember who invited who, but we went out to coffee
Mm-hmm.
and we had a long, like 3 hour conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And she understood where I was coming from. I understood where she was coming from. This lady is now a ally. I mean, she
Yeah.
goes out and when I say she's a firecracker, like she stands up against injustice. She doesn't care how tall, big, heavy, whatever, she will stand up against you and show you who's boss.
Mm-hmm.
And she's told me so many stories where she's now recognizing uh where her white privilege has
Mm-hmm.
afforded her opportunities and where she sees others that may not get the same privileges she is, she's speaking up for them. And she's like, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
Like she told me many examples, but Denny's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have that type of energy to sit down and have that type of emotional, laborious conversation with someone who is maybe not opposing me, but just is not necessarily in agreement or alignment with my perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that energy.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned the Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
That Facebook group is majority white conservative men. And I'm on there all the time, and we are having debates and discussions. And, we have a lot of wisecrack jokes and have fun, but I'm that type of person that I have a desire and I have the patience to be there, to be present and expose them to someone who can have a conversation and not be offended and not be angry and not come at them. And this is a safe space for them to be themselves
Yeah.
and for me to also be myself and allow us to grow together. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand. It's not necessarily about you need to learn what my race is about or I need to learn what your race is about. You
Mm-hmm.
just need to learn me, be exposed to my life, be exposed to my perspective, and be
Mm-hmm.
okay with it if it doesn't align with yours.
Mm. I love that because I I met a friend recently, or I made a friend recently, and the way that came about was we got into it a little bit in the Facebook comments section. It happens, right? It
Yeah.
happens. And um the next day is, it's kind of like the day after, you
Mhm.
get a little more clarity. The
Yeah.
next day you go back and you read the whole message string again and you're like, all right, maybe I was a little salty there. you know um I get it. And what we ended up doing was we ended up messaging back and forth and connecting and said, let's connect on Zoom. You know what? I think I want to get to know, let's get to know each other, a one-on-one. So, I mean, she
Yeah.
was in another state, so it wasn't as I didn't have the capacity to, just go meet her for coffee. But um, in doing that, I found that we intersected a lot in the things that in our interests, in the way that, and she's a coach as well, so in the way that we talked with other clients and the kind of practices that we use, and the backgrounds, our exposures are somewhat similar. We found some similarities, and it's like, gosh, what if we hadn't done this, and we just left
Mm.
mad at each
Yeah.
other, you know so more of that, more of,
Yeah.
get mad in the comments or whatever, but reach out on an individual level and
Yeah.
say, let's see, let's try to understand each other as human beings.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then the conversation of course can naturally go to, all right, can I ask about this? Can I ask about that? I mean, it just happens. It's more
Yeah,
organic, I guess, that way
exactly.
than trying
Exactly.
to find a one place that is going to serve these people and these people and these people who are still learning and whatever part of your journey you're on, this journey
Right.
of life,
Yeah.
this journey of
Yeah.
life.
Let's let it happen organic. Let it flow out as natural as it can be.
Yeah.
That's the best way to learn. That's the best way to expose to other people's perspectives. Just let it flow and just be okay that someone may not agree. Be
Yeah.
okay with that
There's that too. There's
and be
that too.
curious. Be curious, not judgmental. Like just be curious. So, what makes you think that way? Why would you? Maybe not ask it that way. I'm not really good at asking those type of questions, but like really,
Yeah.
how? Why do you feel that way? What a friend of mine always asks, like if I have a have an issue, what happened in your childhood to make you feel
Yes.
that way?
Yes.
What?
Yes, but it's true though. It's true. I mean, we all have we're all carrying
History, yeah.
trauma. We're all carrying trauma.
Hmm.
We all have our generational trauma. They're
Yeah,
just it's just different. It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
different trauma. I had another friend that had a conversation with recently about, kind of shooting down this whole notion that there's big T trauma and little T trauma. Trauma is trauma to the individual holding it in his or her body. This is my trauma, right?
Yeah.
You'll never fully understand it.
Mm.
But I can
I don't
I
know.
can maybe I can maybe give you some insights if you're interested in knowing
Yeah.
what happened in your childhood. You know, I
So
mean,
let's dive into trauma a little bit more
yeah,
because this is something that we don't a lot of people don't talk about, and they think about childhood trauma.
yeah,
But there's also adult trauma. There's
yeah,
also young adult trauma. There's also yesterday trauma.
yep,
So if you think about it, like a grown man, I'm almost 45 years old, and
hmm,
I'm still dealing with trauma from my childhood.
yeah,
But compounded on top of that childhood trauma, let's just say I'm dealing with trauma that occurred to me when I was 8 years old.
hmm,
So I then had established a certain behavior at 9, at 10, at 12
hmm,
that caused me more trauma based on that original trauma.
hmm,
So not only am I dealing with the original trauma, but I'm also dealing with the exponential trauma
yes,
that occurred every year after that because of my pattern of trauma.
hmm, yeah,
Just let that sink for a second. And that's
right,
every one of us. Every one of us, not just childhood, young adult,
hmm.
adolescent trauma, middle age crisis trauma. Can we talk about that for a second?
We are there, my friend.
Can we
We
talk
are
about the aches
there.
and pains in the morning and
Yeah.
not? Do you see these little floaty things when you're looking up into the sky and all these little floaty? Like, where the hell did
Oh,
these things
I've
come
been seeing
from?
those things.
Oh my god! And I got to
Yeah.
deal with this for the rest of my life. Like
Yeah.
that's traumatic.
It it is traumatic. It is traumatic to be like, okay, well, this isn't working like it used to.
Right.
I'm looking at pair of rollerblades over there in the corner going, I really, really want to do that. but, but that's pretty
Yeah.
risky. I don't know,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you got to think about if I were to break something, then I wouldn't be able
Yes.
like if I were to break a leg, I then
Uh-huh.
wouldn't be able to drive.
Hmm.
What else
Hmm.
can I not do that everyone in my house depends upon me to do?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you gotta
Hmm.
gotta think 10 steps ahead. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and and it's crazy, but you are exactly right. It is the compounded trauma over time, and even just things like, okay, you want to know a childhood trauma of mine? This is gonna be really, it's gonna be really light. However, this occurred to me earlier today in a conversation as well. So I'm old enough to remember a time like back in my day. That's what Connor says. He's like, oh God, we're going back in my day. It's like, yeah, we're going to go there. Okay. Listen, dude, when I was in grade school, now granted, this was Eastern Kentucky grade school. So we might have been a little bit might have been a little bit behind. I'm not talking about the curriculum, but I mean, I'm talking about like the, the facilities and that kind of thing, so like
Okay.
chalkboards and all of that, which, I don't know when dry erase boards came out, but we had chalkboards, and we
Hmm.
had and probably some of the practices. I mean, like we had in-school paddlings like that, yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we had that happening in
Corporal
grade
punishment.
school. Corporal punishment, dude, all the way up until 8th grade. I was still, and I'm not sure the rest of the world was still
Yeah.
doing it
I think
then,
we had it still in third grade, but not in eighth
Okay.
grade. No,
Yeah.
third grade we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, um, one of the things that they would have us do with it, as a form of punishment, besides that, by the way, that's not even the trauma I was going to refer to. The
Hmm.
trauma I was going to refer to was writing, standing at the blackboard and covering the blackboard. I will not chew
Oh
gum in
gosh.
class. I will not talk in class.
No.
I will not, over and over. And what occurred to me, I had something occur to me earlier today, and it was like, this is like the opposite of an affirmation. This is the
Mm.
opposite. It's a negative affirmation. This is like, I'm going to write
Wow.
100 times. I will not, will not, will not, will not do this,
Wow. Wow.
until it's embedded, in my thick brain that I'm not supposed to do this when I'm
Yeah.
in 3rd grade, you know?
Oh boy.
You think
Oh
about
boy.
that. That's just one. It's like, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, just
Mm.
those
Mm.
things that we carry like that. And it just, yeah. And the reason that came up for me in a conversation with like I don't know, a Gen Z friend. Is Gen Z like still under 30? I've got a friend that's like around, around that. And she
Okay.
is I was sharing with her the blackboard story and writing, that kind of thing. I was like, this is going to freak you out a little bit, but this used to happen to me in school. She's like, that's abuse. I mean, she was such
Oh
a,
gosh.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
flipping out about it. And I'm
Well,
like,
that was how we grew up.
well,
That was how we
that,
grew up.
but that's how it
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
A negative affirmation. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now what if we made kids get up in school and said and wrote on the chalkboard, write on the chalkboard, I am beautiful. Keep on writing. Fill the whole chalkboard.
Can you
Now I love that.
imagine?
I
Can
love
you
that.
imagine how different things would
Flip it.
be in our world?
Yeah.
How different things would be if we stopped trying to force everyone to be exactly the same, and
Mm.
and just sit in rows, and all of
Honor
that.
our uniqueness. We can honor our uniqueness. Yeah. So one of my
Hmm.
favorite teachers, since we're talking about grade school, in
Yeah.
eighth grade, I had a teacher named Mr. Godot. And Mr. Godot was a fascinating man. And the way that he arranged his classroom is you can sit wherever you want.
Mm,
There was no assigned seatings. There was no rows and columns. It was a bunch of furniture over here, a bunch of furniture over there, a couple desks, a couple chairs.
hmm.
Wherever you felt like sitting that day, you can sit. And if you had some energy and you wanted to stand up, stand up. If you wanted
Yes.
to move to another area, move to another area.
Hmm.
And we would just, it wasn't necessarily a classroom setting. It was more of a discussion setting. It was like, hey, we're going to go into this class, and of course, we're going to have work to do, but we're going to talk about the work. We're going to
Yeah.
discuss. And I love that format. That format just, I think that's where I really learned so much.
Hmm.
I mean, there was so many things out of that eighth grade class that I remember today. Like it's
Mm.
embedded in my head because of the interactions we had. It wasn't that I was sitting at my desk with a paper and pen and memorizing. I
Hmm.
was connecting things. I was making connections because we were having conversations. And, uh,
Yes.
I wish
Oh,
school could be like that. All
yes.
schools.
All schools
Yeah.
could be like that. All learning
Yeah.
environments could be like that.
Yeah.
Hey, I will attend a Zoom class sometimes where I'm like, I mean, I've, of course, a couple of years ago ended up getting a lift, of, kind of a, not a standing desk, but I mean, it is a standing desk, but one that would sit on top of my existing. So I, I mean, sometimes I'll catch myself in a Zoom class or something for 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, are we going to have are we going to do a bathroom break? Are we going to do, I mean, anything? I mean, and I'm just like, yeah, camera off. I got to go. I got to walk around for a minute. This is
Yep.
ridiculous. You know, I mean,
Yep.
we can't expect that much of ourselves in terms of,
Yeah.
being able to
Mm.
consume so much and retain it
Yeah.
in any format, in any setting. That engagement, what you're talking about, that engagement in that one-on-one with your neighbor, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That is what, more of that, please.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and talking to neighbors that you haven't talked to before. We had a little block party I guess it was last weekend, that I noticed, I did go around, I did get to meet some neighbors. And of course, it's the first time we've done anything like this in the past couple of years, so it's like, yes, we've got, some opportunity to actually interact face to face and meet new people and that kind of thing. But I did notice that, there are the cliques in the neighborhood, the same people
Hmm.
talk to the same people. I mean, that's what we do that. We do
Yeah.
that because
Yeah.
it's comfortable. So getting a little uncomfortable sometimes
Yeah. Yeah.
is
So
in order.
I got, I got a question about the block party because I would
Yeah.
love to do that for my neighborhood.
Hmm.
How did you like? Who organized it, and what did you guys do? Like, did you just like go door to door and just say, "Hey, we're gonna get together in the middle of the courtyard"? Or,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it. We have a Facebook. We do have a Facebook group, but we know not everybody's on Facebook. I wasn't an organizer. I'm just, speaking for, how it came together. Um,
Right.
so we have that. I think the HOA sent out an email as well, and then somebody else delivered paper invitations to the door, to
Okay.
everybody's door. So that's how we kind of got the word out. And yeah, we just kind of blocked off part of the street. We can,
Nice.
we can do that here. We got the homeowners that were directly facing that part of the street. We just put up some cones,
Okay.
and had games out, all kinds of
Nice.
fun stuff.
Nice.
Like if invited, if some residents had a business that they wanted to promote, invite them to promote their business,
Okay.
sell their
Okay.
wares, invite a food truck,
Nice.
um,
Okay.
and
I think
make
we'll
it
have to
happen.
touch base offline so that you can help me
Yeah,
plan it. 'Cause
yeah.
I like that idea. I want to do that for my neighborhood.
Oh man, the kids loved it. The kids
Yeah.
loved it, and and
Cool.
I got to meet some new neighbors, and it happened to have it was on Holy, so I even got a henna tattoo on
Ooh,
my, I was like, I wasn't expecting all this. That's great. I
that's
mean,
cool. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So
Awesome. Cool.
um,
Very cool.
I
Very
think
cool.
that's probably a good note to wrap on, because I do again want to be respectful of your time and the all of the work that you do, like no
Mhm.
actual work, like the jobs, the jobs and the
Yes, yes,
things,
yes.
the jobs and the kids and all those things. So
Yeah.
I thank you for uh, being able to, or allowing me to just really dig into, not not too far beneath the surface, but just kind of poke beneath the surface of some of the things, some of the conversations that are coming out of this event at the Oscars. And I appreciate the discussions that are happening. I see that. I don't want it to go away. Um,
Yeah.
it's bigger than those three people,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
hope, and I wish all three of them the best. I hope they work it out. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I know they will. I think they will. I think it'll be better once we get on the other side of this. And
Mm-hmm.
but to your point, I really enjoyed having this conversation, and I hope that in future, if ever there's other topics you want to talk about, things that you want to really dig into, hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
open invitation. I can't promise like the timing and the schedule is always going to work because, as you
Uh-huh.
said, I've got a lot going on right now. But I will do my best to make some time to have these conversations, and would love to be on a panel if you had it, so that I can
Yes.
really expose people to a different perspective. So I'm always about it. I'm always for it. I play devil advocate very
Mm-hmm.
often with multiple people, and people hate it, but I think that it helps to tease out our perspective and tease out understanding. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's always a pleasure talking to you. I loved working with you, loved our lunches, and loved
Yeah,
just chatting and just it was
I
cool. It
know.
was
I
cool.
agree. I
And
absolutely
I'm very
agree.
proud of you, by the way. Let me also
Mm.
say that I'm so proud of you. What was
Oh,
it? Four years ago, we had the conversation about life coaching, and look at you,
probably,
look,
yeah.
blowing up. Love it,
I
love it.
know. Oh, thank you. Thank you so, so much. All right, my friend. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right.
Take care. Oh, seriously, how wonderful was this? We talked about all of the things. I don't know. I just felt like it was meant to be exactly like this. I hope that you got some takeaways. Some of it may have been difficult to hear. I get it. I know. It has been difficult for me too. There have been times that it has been downright painful, and I've said to myself, well, I don't want to see her here anymore. I'm good. But when I have those thoughts, I just get to gently remind myself that all of the band aids are made in my skin color, and they have been for all of my life. I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing that band aids in darker colors are more expensive because they are likely not mass produced. Just saying. It's one of not 1,000 cuts, but 1,000 cuts over thousands of years. And so that is what we are witnessing right now. I believe that. And it is a privilege that I have to say, yeah, I don't want to hear any more about the conversations that are happening as a result of that Oscar thing. It is straight up privilege and ableist to not even see that deaf actor receive his award, and it is privilege to forget him and erase him. This shit is not easy, my friends. I will not, nor will I ever not talk about the hard parts of life, because I have already spent all of this life dodging it. So, no more. And I just want to make a quick note about being an ally. On my own journey, and it's been a work in progress for many, many years in trying to understand how life works for humans that don't have the same experience as I do. I have learned along the way that one does not simply designate oneself as an ally. You have to do the work, and those you are doing the work for recognize you as an ally. And today, Mark said very clearly, I consider you an ally. That is everything. And that does not mean that I am done, that I am anointed, that I got my freaking badge. It simply means that I've been seen. And that, my friends, is all that any of us want from this life, to be seen. I challenge you to convince me otherwise. Finally, I have never had a guest turn the tables on me like Mark did right from the start. Whew! It was gracious, and it demonstrated his character that he asked me what lights me up. Damn. It was so unexpected and so very much appreciated. I love you, man. And to all of you, light up, shine on.